Hi there, this is Kevin Patton with a brief audio introduction to episode number 61 of the A&P Professor podcast, also known as TAPP Radio, an audio extravaganza for teachers of human anatomy and physiology. One of the reasons I do these preview episodes is to give you a heads up on what kind of topics will be coming up in the full episode, in this case, full episode number 61. One of the topics will be bone marrow transplants and specifically how they can alter the genetic makeup of the recipient. Well, they kind of sort of change the genetic makeup of the recipient, and we're going to explore that based on a specific, somewhat extreme case. And in another segment, we're going to talk about Wi-Fi. And you might think, wait a minute, this is the wrong podcast. I'm not tuning into a technology podcast right now. But it's not about the technology, but the effect of the electromagnetic field that's used in Wi-Fi, the effect of that on the biological processes of the human body. So what do I mean by that? You're going to have to stay tuned and wait for the full episode. And then the featured topic is going to be a series of short segments on the perennial conversations that we always have about course prerequisites. What kinds of prerequisites should we require for the A&P course? Should we have required prerequisites? If students have required prerequisites, then why don't they know anything when they come to me in my class? Well, I'm going to address all those questions, maybe not very satisfactorily, but I'm going to address them in the next full episode, that is episode number 61. Support for this episode comes from ADInstruments, providers of Power Lab data acquisition systems, the LT online learning platform, and content for laboratory solutions in anatomy and physiology. If you're looking for a simple setup and high-quality data, you need to check out ADInstruments. And don't forget, ADInstruments is offering 10% off select solutions for listeners to the A&P Professor podcast. Yeah, that's right, 10% off, and this offer goes through March. Just go to their website at go.adinstruments.com/podcast, and then use their lab solution builder. And remember to mention this podcast on any web form in order to get your 10% off. That's go.adinstruments.com/podcast. Well, it's time once again for Word Dissection, where we practice what we all do in our teaching and take apart words and translate their parts to deepen our understanding. Sometimes they're old and familiar terms, and sometimes they're terms new to us. Or maybe they're so fresh that they're new to everyone because they were just made up last week. So the first term on our list today for word dissection is chimera, sometimes pronounced chimera. It's spelled capital C-H-I-M-E-R-A. And the reason why it's usually capitalized is it's the proper name of a mythical fire-breathing monster, which is usually represented by a lion's head, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. And it's kind of usually visualized where it's three animals smushed together rather than a single creature that just has parts of animals. So it's just really weird. And the character of chimera originated in ancient Greek mythology. But over time, the word chimera has taken on broader meanings, and it can refer to any kind of grotesque monster, or it could even be used even more broadly to mean an illusion or something imaginary. Over time, the image of a chimera has often been used to represent various concepts illustrated by the dramatic and grotesque image of the mythical chimera being made up of other creatures all smushed together. I'm sure you've seen someone resembling a fire-breathing monster at a faculty meeting, for example. But I suggest you not use the term this way, though, at least not at a faculty meeting. just for your own safety when you're around a fire-breathing, grotesque monster. The term chimera is going to come up in the full episode number 61 because it's used when describing the genome of an organism that includes genetic code that originated in 2 or more different zygotes. So in this case, the term chimera is not pejorative. It's just descriptive of being made up of 2 or more different kinds of things genetically. Looking at the word origin, we see that it's Latin, but it's borrowed from the Greek word for she-goat. But even in Greek, it was then borrowed to be used as the proper name of this mythological being called chimera. The next term on our list is forensic. When we break the word down, we get forens, which means public, or really more literally belonging to the forum, which is where public discussions occurred in ancient times in Western civilization. And then the IC ending means relating to, which we know already. So forensic means relating to the public forum. Now, dictionary.com defines forensic as pertaining to, connected with, or used in courts of law or public discussion and debate. In science, the term forensic is often used to refer to anything used to support the conclusion of some sort of scientific examination or debate that's used in the criminal justice system, for example. So that's forensic. Our next term is apoptosis. And when we break down apoptosis, we get apo, A-P-O. That's a prefix that implies a falling apart or a falling away. And then the second part of the word, ptosis, which is P-T-O-S-I-S, ptosis, that also means a falling. So this is sort of a redundant term in a way. It's like a falling away. We really mean falling or breaking apart. And so you can translate apoptosis literally as a falling or a falling off or a falling away. But in biology, it's usually defined as or described as programmed cell death. That is, it's not death due to injury or aging necessarily. It's a programmed thing, as when different biochemical signals are going to trigger the breaking down and death of a cell and its removal from that area. So it can be a part of a natural process, for example, the remodeling of the body that occurs during embryonic development and even postnatal development, where we're removing tissues or cells that we don't need anymore. And so we can call that apoptosis. But you know what? You can also call it apoptosis. Yep, a lot of people fight about this, and I don't have enough time to spend on fights like this, and honestly, I don't really care. But I will mention the fact that a lot of people get really, really mad about this if you don't use the pronunciation that they use, because there's really strong feelings on both sides of this. But most medical dictionaries and other dictionaries do accept both pronunciations or do publish both pronunciations, and that is apoptosis, where the second P is silent, or apoptosis, where both P's are pronounced. So, hey, it's up to you, and I don't really care. So go ahead, call into the podcast hotline and argue with me about it if you want, and maybe I'll play some of those on a later episode. But call into the podcast hotline anyway. I don't care why you call. Just call in. It hasn't been ringing much lately, so I want to hear from you. And if you want to throw the word apoptosis in there, or even apoptosis, go right ahead. Our next term on our word dissection list is the term Wi-Fi. And I mentioned that when I was talking about topics we're going to be talking about in our full episode. So there's some kind of weirdness with that term Wi-Fi that I wasn't aware of until fairly recently. You and I both know what Wi-Fi is, right? It's a kind of wireless system that allows computers and other devices to communicate without being physically wired into a network. But something I didn't realize until recently, it's actually a registered trademark. and it should be written as capital W, small I, hyphen, capital F, small I. So Wi-Fi, where both parts are capitalized and there's a hyphen in between them. Now, I've seen about at least three other different variations of how Wi-Fi is written, but if we're going to use proper communication, we're going to use proper formatting and grammar and so on, then it should be capital Y, capital Phi. It's a trademark that's owned by the nonprofit Wi-Fi Alliance, and I guess it needs to be protected by trademark so that systems can be certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance, certified to work properly. So it's a matter of really keeping things official so that different Wi-Fi devices and Wi-Fi systems really can work well with each other, and we don't have a whole bunch of different variations of it. Now, breaking down the term Wi-Fi, the Y part comes from wireless. The Phi part is a shortened form of fidelity. Now, here fidelity refers to adherence to a standard to promote the reliability of function. So Wi-Fi is really a shortened form of wireless fidelity, and it is a standardized kind of system. You know, there are probably a lot of words that I use that I think are common nouns like Wi-Fi, but turn out to really be, like Wi-Fi, a registered trademark. I mean, there's things like aspirin, zipper, fiberglass, bubble wrap, memory stick, dry ice, escalator, taser. Okay, I never used the word taser. Okay, well, I did just now, right? But I don't usually use that word. This podcast is sponsored by HAPS, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, promoting excellence in the teaching of human anatomy and physiology for over 30 years. Go visit HAPS at theapprofessor.org/HAPS. And don't forget that the early bird special for the HAPS annual conference in Ottawa, Ontario, is coming up soon, is February 21st. And that same date is the deadline for submitting to do a workshop or a poster at the 2020 HAPS annual conference in Ottawa, Ontario. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 1 in 9 Americans works in sales. But according to the author of our new pick for the A&P Professor Book Club, so do the other 8. The book is called To Sell is Human, The Surprising Truth About Moving Others, and it was written by Daniel Pink. Now you might ask, and rightly so, why did I even read a book about selling? Well, partly it was because I'd learned a lot from another book by Daniel Pink, which I'll save for a different day. But mainly it was because of the subtitle of this book, that is, The Surprising Truth About Moving Others. I had heard Pink talking about that aspect of the book, and I was really interested in learning as much as I could about motivating my students. And this book did not disappoint. In fact, the idea of motivating students came up as an example in the book of the many ways that we are sellers. In this case, sellers of ideas and of mastery of concepts. In other words, I know why putting a lot of effort into learning as much as possible about the human body while taking an A&P course will help a student be well prepared for later courses and for a career in health professions. But I have to sell that idea to incoming students. And if they buy into that, then keeping them motivated, it's not so hard. Sure, I may have to keep servicing that sale and reminding them of the benefits of hard work and mastery of concepts, but that's all part of the selling I have to do as a teacher. But as I read it, I realized that I'm not just selling mastery of anatomy and physiology to my students, I'm also selling the course and any other course that I develop to my colleagues and administrators, especially those on the curriculum committee. I sell ideas and my proposals to granting agencies. I sell my expertise and experience when I apply for, then present workshops and seminars. I'm doing the same thing in every episode of this podcast. I sell myself when I run for a seat on a committee or a board or in a professional organization. When I submit a manuscript or pitch a book or article idea, I've got to sell it. Yikes, my job is mostly about sales, it turns out. To Sell is Human offers a fresh look at the art and science of selling. Pink draws on a rich trove of social science for his counterintuitive insights. He reveals the new ABCs of moving others. It's no longer always be closing. And explains why extroverts don't make the best salespeople. And shows how giving people an off-ramp for their actions can matter more than actually changing their minds. Along the way, Pink describes the 6 successors to the elevator pitch, the 3 rules for understanding another's perspective, the 5 frames that can make your message clearer and more persuasive, and just a whole bunch more in that book. The result is a perceptive and practical book, one that will change how you see the world and transform what you do at work, at school, and at home. To Sell is Human, The Surprising Truth About Moving Others by Daniel Pink is an enjoyable alternative to the kinds of books you've probably been reading lately. And I know you'll gain a lot of insights about teaching and your other professional activities. The free distribution of this podcast is sponsored by the Master of Science in Human Anatomy and Physiology Instruction, the HAPI degree. I'm on the faculty of this program, so I know the incredible value it is for A&P teachers. When's the last time you had a thorough review of all the core concepts of both anatomy and physiology, or comprehensive training in contemporary teaching practice? Check out this online graduate program at nycc.edu/HAPI, or click the link in the show notes or episode page. Hey, you probably forgot about that survey that I've been taking that's part of my end-of-season debriefing. I'm asking you now to please take just a few minutes of your time to respond to that anonymous survey, because it's your experience as an individual listener that's important to me. Just go to the approfessor.org/survey. And as always, thanks for your support. A searchable transcript and a captioned audiogram of this preview episode are funded by AAA, the American Association for Anatomy, at anatomy.org. Take a moment now to explore the new, easy-to-navigate website at anatomy.org. Whether you're a seasoned AAA enthusiast like me or just now learning about this organization, you're going to find a lot of interesting resources to explore at anatomy.org. Well, this is Kevin Patton signing off for now and reminding you to keep your questions and comments coming. Why not call the podcast hotline right now at 1-833-LION-DEN. That's 1-833-546-6336. And remember, I'm not going to judge you on how you pronounce apoptosis or apoptosis. Or you can visit us at theapprofessor.org. I'll see you down the road. Support for this preview episode comes from the American Association for Anatomy, ADInstruments, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, and the Master of Science in Human Anatomy and Physiology Instruction.